Michael Penix Jr. Wow, what a fascinating draft prospect to talk about in the 2024 NFL Draft. There have been many opinions and takes made on Michael Penix Jr. as he finished second in the Heisman Trophy race this past season for Washington. This is Sports Guy Talking that you guys are watching and listening to. I am Dustin Tran, your host, as I am here today to talk about Michael Penix Jr.'s draft stock, as I will also be making player comparisons for Michael Penix Jr. Despite taking Washington to the national championship game this past season, there are still major concerns surrounding Michael Penix Jr. as he has a long list of injuries that he suffered throughout his collegiate career. With Michael Penix Jr. turning 24 years old in less than a month, he will also be one of the older draft prospects out there at the quarterback position. Before I say anything else, though, I want to present you guys with the topic question. So here it is. Is Michael Penix Jr. an underrated draft prospect? And I know I'm going to come off as a hater, but I'm going to say hell no to this. Michael Penix Jr. is not an underrated draft prospect. I know some people are listing Michael Penix Jr. as the steal of this draft class, but I don't believe that Michael Penix is going to be a great quarterback at the NFL level. I know that Michael Penix Jr. played really good football for Washington the past 2 seasons, but have you guys seen his injury history throughout his collegiate career? I mean, holy cow, this guy has a long list of injuries that he has had to overcome, and it is more than what some NFL quarterbacks have gone through throughout their NFL careers. And obviously, if you are an injury-prone player early on in your career, chances are you are probably not going to improve your health heading into the NFL game. Michael Penix Jr. has some of the worst medicals that I have ever seen heading into the NFL draft, and obviously, you look at how Michael Penix Jr. has already torn his ACL not once but twice. But not only that, Michael Penix Jr. has also had shoulder injuries not once but twice at the college level as well. That's 4 combined injuries to 4 serious parts of the body. Obviously, if you're a quarterback, you need to be able to have a good shoulder working in your favor, because if your shoulder doesn't work properly at the NFL level, then you're not going to have very good arm strength heading into the NFL level. And even if your arm strength is all right, maybe your accuracy ends up being affected. But then, of course, you look at how knee injuries matter because of the fact that quarterbacks use their knees to bend back in their footwork and how they use their knees to generate power in their throws. You look at how Michael Penix Jr. has had good production at Washington, but I am scared of his medicals. I know his medicals have checked out at the NFL Combine and at his pro day. I know that his injuries have been in the past and that he has been able to stay healthy the past 2 seasons, but I'm looking at that injury history right now and I'm thinking, holy cow, that is some of the worst medicals that I have ever seen in the history of the game. If I'm Michael Penix Jr., I'm actually blessed that I'm even in this position to get drafted at the NFL level because of the fact that he has had so many injuries to his name. You look at how Michael Penix Jr. has also relied on having an elite offensive line. He had one of the best O-lines in the country at Washington. Is he going to get that elite offensive line at the NFL level? I highly doubt it, because you look at how there are a lot of bad offensive lines at the NFL level. Unless if your team is the Philadelphia Eagles, every team has a mediocre offensive line or worse for the most part. Okay, maybe you can include some other teams that have a good O-line like the Las Vegas Raiders or the Cleveland Browns, but outside of a handful of teams, there are a lot of bad offensive lines surrounding the NFL. And obviously, Michael Penix Jr. was very dependent on having a good offensive line in order to protect his own body and to be able to throw the deep ball. I saw Michael Penix Jr. was able to increase his yards per attempt at Washington, but that was because he had all day to throw the football. I mean, holy cow, they gave him a decade to throw it because he was rarely hit. Even when teams sent all-out pressure on Michael Penix Jr., it didn't even matter because Michael Penix Jr. was rarely hit. I mean, holy cow, I think most casual fans could have looked good in that pocket for Washington. Is Michael Penix Jr. going to get that much time to throw the football at the NFL level? I highly doubt that Michael Penix is going to have that much time to throw at the NFL level. And obviously, you look at Michael Penix Jr. behind a bad offensive line, that's not a good combination for him. He struggles to throw the football accurately when he is under pressure. You look at that national championship game against Michigan, where he struggled mightily in that game because Michigan was actually the only team on Washington's schedule that was actually able to get pressure on Michael Penix Jr. They actually hit him up a good amount in that game, and Michael Penix Jr. looked flustered. He played horrible in that national championship game. And you look at how Michael Penix Jr. looked like a completely different player when he had time in the pocket versus when he didn't have time in the pocket. When Michael Penix has all day to throw the football, he looks really good throwing the football. However, a lot of quarterbacks can look really good throwing the football when they have 5-6 seconds to drop back and not get hit. Obviously, Michael Penix Jr. looked like a complete completely different player when he was getting hit all night long in that national championship game against Michigan. And obviously, Michigan's defensive line overwhelmed Michael Penix Jr. big time. I think Michael Penix Jr. is not an underrated draft prospect at all. I don't even have a first-round grade on Michael Penix Jr. I actually have a day 3 grade on Michael Penix Jr. I'm not that high on Michael Penix Jr. compared to most casual fans and even some NFL scouts. I'm hearing how Michael Penix Jr. could be a potential first-round pick, and I'm going to say this right on the record. If a team takes Michael Penix Jr. in the first round of the NFL draft, that would be a massive mistake for an NFL GM to go ahead and do. You might as well just go ahead and fire that NFL GM right now. Have you seen the medicals surrounding Michael Penix Jr.? Holy cow, this guy has multiple ACL injuries. The guy has multiple shoulder injuries, and he also doesn't do well when you give him pressure up the middle, because if you pressure Michael Penix Jr., he's going to start making mistakes and he's going to start throwing the football inaccurately. So here's what I'm going to say about Michael Penix Jr. I think Michael Penix Jr. can play a decade in the league. I think that he can be a solid backup for an NFL franchise. I think Michael Penix Jr. is a smart player. I think that he is a good leader of men and that he has high IQ. I also don't doubt his toughness. Obviously, if you had as many injuries as Michael Penix Jr. has had and you're still playing football, you're a tough quarterback. I don't care what anybody else has to say. Michael Penix Jr. is a tough quarterback. Whether you like it or not, that's the truth. That's the facts right there. And obviously, Michael Penix Jr. also had Rome Odunsi to throw the football to. You look at how Washington also had one of the better wide receiving corps in the country. Is Michael Penix Jr. going to get that at the NFL level? I don't think so. I don't think Michael Penix is a guy that can carry a franchise on his back. Now, what do I see Michael Penix as a best case scenario? I think Michael Penix ceiling is going to be Tua Tagovailoa, and that might not necessarily be a bad thing, because you look at how Tua is with Tyreek Hill versus without Tyreek Hill, and he looks like a completely different player. When Tua Tagovailoa has Tyreek Hill to throw the football to, he is mentioned in the MVP conversation, but when he doesn't have Tyreek Hill out there, he looks like an absolute scrub out there. So obviously, that's a guy that I'm thinking about when I'm thinking about Michael Penix Jr. I think Michael Penix Jr. is going to be a fine quarterback in the NFL. Best case scenario, if you give him an elite wide receiver one, you also have to give Michael Penix Jr. an elite offensive line. Guess what? Tua Tagovailoa also has an elite offensive line on the Miami Dolphins. So you combine that alongside with good play calling like he had at Washington. Well, maybe Michael Penix Jr. will be a solid player at the NFL level, but I don't think Michael Penix Jr. is this great prospect that is going to carry a franchise on his back. As far as what I see him being, worst case scenario, I'm going to say an oversized Bryce Young, where he is going to be overwhelmed all day long at the NFL level. If you give him a bad offensive line, if you put Michael Penix Jr. on a horrible football team, he is not going to help save your franchise whatsoever, and that he struggles to make good decisions when he is under pressure all the time. You look at how Bryce Young struggled mightily for my Carolina Panthers last year when he was under constant pressure all the time. I'm just going to say for Michael Penix Jr. that he will probably be an oversized Bryce Young if he is going to be the worst case version of himself. You look at how Michael Penix Jr. looked like an absolute scrub in the national championship game. You also look at the fact how he was pedestrian for Indiana back when he played for them before he transferred to Washington. I didn't see anything in his tape at Indiana that made me think, wow, this guy is going to be a very good NFL caliber quarterback. I saw, okay, maybe he is going to be a backup quarterback at the NFL level. Maybe Michael Penix Jr. isn't that good of a player. So that's what I'm going to be thinking of when I think about Michael Penix Jr. worst case scenario. And then, of course, middle ground, what do I see him realistically being? I see him being Teddy Bridgewater, where he's going to be smart with the football in his hands, and that if you give him a good offensive line as well as a good wide receiver one, he's going to look really good at times, but that he doesn't really have the X factor to be able to change a game on his own. I think Michael Penix Jr. can be a solid quarterback, but do I think Michael Penix Jr. can be a game-changing quarterback? I don't necessarily think so. I know some people are going to say, look at the numbers, man. Have you seen Michael Penix Jr.'s numbers at Washington? They were really good, but you guys have to remember that he was playing in the Pac-12, a conference that is known for not playing any defense whatsoever. He also had the best offensive line in the country, and he also had an elite wide receiver one. Is he going to get that at the NFL level? I don't know, and I don't think it's likely that's going to happen for Michael Penix Jr. at the NFL level. I think Michael Penix Jr. is going to be a fine quarterback at the NFL level, but I don't think Michael Penix Jr. is this elite draft prospect that is going to be a game-changing player at the quarterback position. As far as where I rank Michael Penix Jr. on my draft board, I am going to rank him 6 on my quarterback board. I got him behind Drake Maye, Jayden Daniels, JJ McCarthy, Bo Nix, and Caleb Williams. I don't like the medicals that are surrounding Michael Penix Jr. He's an extremely injury-prone player, and he is also way too dependent on having a good offensive line around him and having an elite wide receiver one around him. If he can get healthy and if he can maximize his talent, maybe he can be another version of Tua Tagovailoa. But other than that, he's not going to be a good player at the NFL level. I have a day 3 grade on Michael Penix Jr. I would take Michael Penix Jr. in the 5th round. I have a 5th round grade on Michael Penix Jr. Now, do I think Michael Penix Jr. will end up getting drafted that late? Probably not. I think Michael Penix Jr. is probably going to get drafted somewhere in the first 3 rounds. Maybe he even goes in the 1st round, depending on how the draft plays out. But I don't think Michael Penix Jr. is this elite quarterback where he is going to change life for an NFL franchise. He is just simply too injury prone, and he struggles to make good decisions while under pressure. And obviously, with those factors, that's not going to work well in the favor of Michael Penix Jr. I think Michael Penix Jr. is going to be a fine quarterback in the NFL in terms of being a top 64 quarterback, but he might not be anything more than that. As far as what NFL scouts aren't telling you about Michael Penix Jr., they're not telling you that he has some of the worst medicals in the history of NFL draft prospects. The guy already has 2 ACL injuries and 2 shoulder injuries to his name in the past. So that is why I do not consider Michael Penix Jr. to be an underrated draft prospect at all. In fact, Michael Penix Jr. is ranked 6th on my draft board for quarterbacks in the 2024 NFL draft, as I have major injury concerns for Michael Penix Jr. at the NFL level. Remember, go ahead and subscribe to Sports Guy Talking, like the video, and please comment down below. If you guys do that, I may shout you guys out in my Instagram story every Monday. That'll be for the @Dustin Tran Instagram account. Make sure to follow me on Instagram @Dustin Tran and that Sports Guy Talking. Also, go follow me on Twitter @Dustin Tran. Again, go ahead and do those things that I just told you guys to go do. Hopefully, you guys enjoyed the content that was just produced. Peace out. I hope you enjoyed that video. Want more Sports Guy Talking, the home of great sports content? Make sure you click that subscribe button to get the latest from Sports Guy Talking. Go ahead and like the video, comment down below, check the description box on the video in order to follow my Instagram and Twitter. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from the YouTube channel Sports Guy Talking.